are you doing? You look
Well,
crazy.
may you. It was about the worst thing I've had to do for Blue Peter so far. It was actually a training session with the Cardiff School of Self-Defence.
Well, you can see more of Karen freezing to death in a moment. Today
It was very nippy out there in the garden this morning, but not half as cold as it was last week in the middle of the Brecon Beacons. It definitely isn't the place to be in January with all the floods they've been having in Wales. But to members of the Cardiff School of Self-Defence, it's just the place for a spot of winter training. When I first met them, though, they were busy practising in a nice warm gymnasium.
Son!
Andrea Connolly is a Welsh ladies karate champion, and it's not difficult to see why. Her coach and the leader of the Cardiff School is Gary Bufton. That is brilliant. Did you hurt your hands on that? Not a mark on them. Is it not sore?
Well, it's a little bit red. It's a little bit red, but it shows that you can't be a novice to do this.
So it's not a good idea to go into the back garden and pick up a garden tile and have a go at it?
No, not really. They're going to hurt themselves.
Is it a matter of brute force, or is there some kind of skill involved?
A lot of psychology as well as speed and strength, skill. And it's a matter of focusing all your power for that one instant. A lot of people would try and do it with brute force, but they would hurt themselves.
The younger members of the school don't attempt tile smashing. They concentrate on practicing stances and blocks. I joined the seniors and juniors for some basic moves under Gary's instructions. There are schools of self-defence all over the country holding training sessions just like this one. But the Kyoko Shinkai style has added something extra and very different to their training. It starts with a gentle jog across the Brecon Beacons. It was a cold morning, but over 100 people had turned up as Gary took the lead across the fields.
Right, slow down. Take it easy here.
The senior members of the Cardiff School run this course every year on the first Saturday in January. The point is not the jog itself, but the destination, as Andrea told me once we'd climbed the stile.
This doesn't seem too bad a jog for such a tough sport. Well, this is just the warm-up, I'm afraid. Just over the mountain is the big thing.
And what is that? Where are we actually going to?
Scooter Rider Waterfall.
Why?
I don't know. I asked myself that. No, it's to prove your spirit and your dedication to Kyokushin training.
Is it very hard?
It's very cold.
You did last year, didn't you?
Yes. Mentally, you need to be fitter than physically.
And did it actually do you much good?
It gives you a sense of achievement after your training.
And pneumonia for about a month.
And pneumonia for a month.
Was it really awful last year?
It was very cold. It was snowing last year.
This year we were lucky. Although the air temperature was around the freezing point, it was before the big snowfalls. I could hear the rush of water as we began our descent down into the valley. The ground was rocky and covered with ice. The experienced ones were sure of their footing, but I wasn't and took things very carefully.
He's up! He's up!
Even so, at one point, the treacherous slope got the better of me. At first glance, the waterfall didn't look very impressive. All this fuss about a little trickle. Then I reached the bank, looked around the corner and came face to face with the Scooter Rider Waterfall, a cascading 15-metre torrent.
Right, lads, time to get changed!
They love all this, don't they?
Yes.
The waterfall looks massive at the moment. Is this usually as big as this?
No, it's a little bit larger than normal because we've had some floods in Wales recently.
Oh, I picked a good year then. Nobody seemed to mind the frost in the bank or even the prospect of the waterfall as they stripped off shoes, socks and sweaters. My feet were already going numb, and that was before I stood barefoot on the cold rocks. If I felt the cold now, I couldn't imagine how I'd feel after what was coming next. But cold feet didn't seem to bother the black belts as they led the way down to the base of the waterfall. It was 11 years ago that Gary visited Japan and discovered that waterfall training was the ultimate test of endurance and stamina. So he brought the idea back to Britain, and for the past 6 years, his pupils have been coming to this waterfall. As the black belts and more hardened trainers took up their positions on the far bank, Gary hurried along the rest of the group.
My feet have gone completely numb. I can't even feel them anymore.
It might have been freezing, but it was an epic sight. Over 100 dedicated martial art followers ranged along the valley, the whole scene echoing with the sound of the waterfall and the chants of Kyoku Shinkai. Then the first pair of victims, heroes, lunatics, call them what you want, actually went under. Training took place on a ledge out of the direct flow, but well within the icy spray. There's no minimum time that must be spent under the waterfall, but 20 seconds is as much as anyone can do. Then it was my turn. Block of ice, cold as ice, freezing to death. The phrase hasn't been invented to describe how I felt as we climbed out of there. But there were plenty of others waiting to take our place on that ledge. I don't think I've ever seen such dedication.
I don't think I've ever been so cold in my life. I thought being into the serpentine was bad. That is just unbelievably cold. And absolutely freezing at the moment. I've gone numb. I'd never do it again, ever. I'll think of the next year, but I'd never go back in again.
But at least I'd done it. At the end, Gary led the black belts under the waterfall.
I think they must be completely mad, and they're still standing over there exercising at the moment. I don't know how they're doing it at all, because it's just so cold. And even when you're behind the waterfall, you're being hit by spray all the time anyway. And my mouth's going numb, so I can't speak very well, but it's freezing.
Not content with the ordeal of training under the waterfall, Gary led the black belts out into the middle of the river for one final session. When they got into position, I asked Andrea how the year compared to previous ones.
It was very cold this year, very hard.
Oh, it was awful. Was it falling much heavier than other years?
It is, yes. The smaller bit that we went under is very, very hard this year. You know, it's fast water all the time.
But it's your feet as well. They go so numb, don't they?
That's right. It works its way up. Go numb all the way up then.
As they were finishing, the others were already dressed and starting the long trek back.
Yes, I'm fine. What did you think of that, Karen?
I'm feeling a lot better now that I'm dressed. I have to tell you now, it was awful. The thing about it is that your brain just goes numb. And if you hadn't been there shouting instructions, I think I'd have stood under it all day.
Yes, exactly. You've got to shout to keep your breath going, keep your rhythm of breathing. It sends blood coursing through your body when you're under tension.
I don't think my blood has ever coursed quite so fast. Have some coffee.
Sure it's coffee.